Museum of Arts and Culture. I'm Ellen, and today my colleague Amanda and I will be taking you on a virtual tour through Pompeii, the immortal city. Let's go!
The eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii within a day in the year 79 AD, was a tragedy for its inhabitants that provides us today with a unique learning opportunity. The eruption made it possible for us to explore the daily life of these men and women as if they still lived alongside us nearly 2,000 years later. The eruption petrified their living environment, which is the subject of this exhibit. The exhibit explores Pompeii's flora and fauna, agricultural production, building techniques, mastery of water resources, and measurements of time and distances. Pompeii is often described as the most famous archaeological site in the world. Over 2.5 million people visit Pompeii every year in order to see the ancient city and remarkable finds that have been uncovered there. The Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture is excited to share a few of those objects with you. Since it was rediscovered, advancement in scientific research brings to light the extraordinary achievements of the Roman world as seen by the frozen-in-time example of Pompeii. The objects that have been unearthed here demonstrate Roman knowledge of nature, science, and technology and confirm the extraordinary heights Pompeians achieved. When you enter the theater, an immersive multimedia experience will plunge you into the heart and the drama as you hear the roar of Mount Vesuvius and feel the earth move under your feet when it erupts before your eyes. Next, our first gallery is dedicated to the Roman craftsmen and technicians. Many craftsmen shaped the face of the city we admire today. The architects and engineers, who are most often slaves, played a key role in that construction. While exploring the gallery, you will discover the craftsmanship of Roman metalworking, stonemasonry, and see the revolution in glass. In 79 AD, Pompeii was a vast building site. Cranes and scaffolding were everywhere. They were needed to rebuild the homes and public buildings destroyed in the earthquake 17 years earlier. Although the walls of the houses were built with the aid of ladders and scaffolding, the construction of larger public buildings required more significant measures. Cranes were built out of wood and operated with the use of winches, pulleys, and hoists. For the heaviest loads, the Romans used a calcatoria, which is a large wheel in the shape of a cage within which men would walk to activate the pulley mechanisms. Public and private buildings were built using a combination of local and imported materials. Priority was given to the local stone, but importing colored and valuable marble began with the Roman conquest of Greece, Asia Minor, and Egypt, a phenomenon that was also accompanied by political propaganda, since marble was rapidly associated with the notion of grandeur. At least one marble workshop has been found, complete with the tools for cutting medium to hard stones. The remains of a forum of metalworkers has been found in Pompeii. It appears that they produced jewelry that was sold across a wide area. Hammers, chisels, and small anvils were used to provide the finishing touches to the jewelry. 8 minerals were mined at the time: gold, silver, bronze, zinc, lead, tin, iron, and mercury. In earlier times, doctors personally prepared their own medication by going to the fields and looking for plants. However, at the time of Pompeii's destruction, the preparation of increasingly complex medicinal products was carried out in specialized stores that skillfully used precision instruments and necessary appliances. Though pharmacopoeia was practiced, Pompeii was home to several specialized surgeons. Using a variety of specialized instruments, these surgeons operated on lesions, deformities, and performed physical alterations. In Pompeii, various examples have been found that prove the existence of specialists qualified to perform a number of operations, such as the removal of the lens in the event of cataracts, dental treatment, and the shortening of fractured limbs and skull trepanation. Doctors practicing in the city appear to have carried with them a box containing their instruments. Metal rods, with one pointed end and the other end shaped like a spatula, were most likely used for dealing with the ears. Other instruments that had a flat, oval end were used for spreading ointment over a wound. Even speculums for women's health have been recovered from Pompeii. Meet the inhabitants of Pompeii. This gallery includes another immersive moment, which is in many perspectives the most emotional. 103 bodies of men, women, children, and animals immobilized in ashen pumice were brought back to life with the use of plaster casts. It was Giuseppe Fiorelli, inspector of excavations at Pompeii from 1847 and then director from 1860 to 75, who first had the idea of producing molds of the victims in Pompeii. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius created special conditions in which archaeologists discovered voids in the packed earth where a body had once been entombed. Fiorelli used that void as a mold into which plaster was poured, thus creating a 3D image. The outline of the solidified plaster is called a cast. In some cases, the cast is detailed enough to allow us to see even the weave of fabrics, along with the expressions and position of the body. In February 1863, 4 victims were recovered during excavation in what is now known as the Street of Skeletons. Giuseppe Fiorelli used the casting method on them for the first time here. The Fiorelli method was used throughout the 20th century. The casts were then left where they had been discovered or in sheltered areas which were nearby to their original location. Our next gallery focuses on the natural resources surrounding Mount Vesuvius. Grapes, olives, and wheat, to name a few, were cultivated in the region around Pompeii, and several species of land animals and marine life were bred and farmed here, including dormice. In this gallery, we can see the products produced by the Pompeians, including an intact loaf of bread ready to be eaten. There were around 30 bakeries in Pompeii producing bread loaves. The most common shape was a round loaf that was usually ready cut in 8 parts. According to one piece of graffiti, bread in Pompeii must have been very good. The graffiti translates into English and reads, "Traveler, eat the bread in Pompeii, but drink in Nocera." The land around Pompeii is highly fertile due to the mineral-rich soil produced by the volcano and the nearby river. Though the soil was fertile, the Pompeians practiced crop rotation to allow it to regenerate. Market gardens also developed, and an agricultural focus for city planning was implemented where it could be. Drier and well exposed, the hills were used for growing grapevines, cereals, especially wheat and barley, and fruit trees, in particular walnut, hazel, and fig trees. At the time, Pompeii was located on the coast, which was a source for both fish and shellfish, though the city also had marine nurseries which they maintained. Oysters were a particular favorite of the Romans, and garum, which is a fermented fish sauce, often accompanied all types of dishes. The remains of animals, as well as artistic representations and objects and frescoes, reveals which animals were important to daily life for the Romans at the time of the eruption. The fertile land was also used to raise not only cattle, pigs, goats, and sheep, but dormice as well, which were appreciated for their tender meat. Animals like oxen and horses were kept to be used as work animals, and the large number of dogs present in the city were used to help with hunting and guarding the home. Frescoes and the discovery of breeding farms have enabled us to identify the local fauna. Amongst others, quails, hens, and geese were well represented because the Romans greatly appreciated eggs, which they often ate at the beginning of meals. Hence the expression used to designate a full meal, which in English translates to "from egg to apple." The inhabitants of Pompeii did not only hunt wild boar, stags, and roebucks, but also the bears living in the woods along the flanks of Vesuvius. Furthermore, being situated along migratory routes, the area around Vesuvius offered many opportunities for hunting wild fowl. To hunt, the people of Pompeii used bows and arrows, as well as snares and nets of suitable dimensions. Numerous remains point to the practice of vine growing in the region around Pompeii as early as the 3rd century BC. The vines were often fastened to posts or grew amongst apricot, almond, and fig trees. After the grape harvest, the juice from the crushed grapes was stocked in dulia, which are large jars placed in holes in the ground. The wine produced in this way does not appear to have been the high-quality kind. To preserve the wine, herbs were often added to it, such as saffron. Mainly destined for the local market, the wine was transported into the city in large leather wineskins loaded onto carts. Wines produced for export were transported by ship in sealed amphoras and stored in the holds. In conclusion, while a deadly misfortune for the inhabitants of Pompeii, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD provides people today an informative glimpse into the lives, agricultural products, technology, and craftsmanship of the Roman Empire. The violent eruption preserved for posterity a glimpse of the daily struggles and joys of its citizens.